All right, I'm going to show you how to bring a OR tools model to Nextmv and be able to run it as an API. And we'll start today with looking at some of the OR tools examples. So here we're on the OR tools site, and we're going to take this simple TSP example as the one we'll work with. So I'm going to click into the Python version, and we'll use this code to go ahead and get started. Because we are using the Python version of this model, I'm going to use the Nextmv CLI to start with a Python template. And what that'll look like is I'll do a Nextmv template init and -t for template and Python. And then I'm going to call this my sample TSP. All right, so we see that was able to use a Python template and it stored it in a folder for me. So we'll go ahead and go into that folder, sample TSP, and look at what's in there. And so you can see that it comes with a README, an app.yaml. This is how Nextmv knows what to include in the runtime to run it on Nextmv Cloud, and also a main.py file. And so that's where we'll be working today. So I will go ahead and open this in VS Code, and we'll get that here. All right. Perfect. So what we see here is that we can go into this sample main file, and we'll be using our terminal a little bit, so I'll keep that open here on the bottom. But this is our sample template, and a lot of what's in here is just sample code to get you started with exposing options in the console and some helper functions down here for logging and stuff like that. We don't actually need any of it, so we're going to go ahead and just get rid of all of this in here to start. And we're going to start with a blank template. So we're going to go ahead and copy in all of the code that is in this example on OR tools. And we'll get that going. All right, all the way down. Perfect. So we'll copy this in here, and then we'll talk about a few changes that we need to make for this to work. And before we do that, we are going to create a new app on our account in Nextmv Cloud. So we'll do that here. You can also do it through the CLI, but I like to use the UI here, so we'll call it sample TSP, just like we called our folder. And really what this is just an API around whatever model we create. And so we're just going to push that model executable file, right? So the OR tools model that we just copied in, we're going to push it in, and you can see right now that this is just an empty API. It doesn't have any model behind it. All right, so let's go just look at this model that we pulled over from OR tools. I'm going to collapse this for a second so we can see a little bit easier. And we can see we have a few imports, so let's move those up just to keep everything nice and clean for us up here. And we want to change anything that is printing like this to kind of your console. We want to change that to print to standard error, and that's because we want to look at it in the logs on the Nextmv side. So the way we do that is we just do a simple print statement here, and we can add all of this into that print. All right. And we are going to print that to a file, and we're going to print it to standard error. All right. And so that'll work with any print statements that we make throughout our app. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete these ones for simplicity. So we'll just go ahead and cruise through here. And what this model is doing is creating data for the actual run for the sample. Normally you'd pass data in, and if you did that, you'd want to pass it into standard in. But for right now, we just are loading data with the model itself. And again, I'm just going to delete these comments here. This distance callback is creating our distance matrix for the routing optimization problem. And this is where this main function is really where we're doing the actual optimization. And so what we want is to be able to see the solution in our app once we run it here in Nextmv. And so basically our only requirement for that is that we are printing to standard out. And so you can see here we have this function that Google provided us with, or OR Tools did, that is print solution. I'm going to go ahead and check that out and see what's in there, because that might serve our purpose. And you can see that this prints the assignment on the console when you run this locally. So we're gonna delete that. And it looks like we have a few print statements kind of going throughout. So we're going to change those over to do the same thing we did above, which is put them to standard error. And you can see that it's going to print the route for the vehicle. We don't need these new lines, so we'll delete those. And we probably want this distance of the route to print separate. So maybe we'll print the plan output first. And that will be the route with all of its indices. And again, we're going to print that to standard error. All right, and then the last one, we'll go ahead and print the distance, total distance for the route as well. So we'll change this to a print statement, and we can go ahead and print that distance. And we can print that to the same standard out file. Standard error file. All right, so we have all this set up. This looks good, but we're not going to see any solutions. So if we go into another app, maybe we'll look at the knapsack OR tools that we had before. When we made runs to this app, you can see we had this statistics that were given for every run. And so we might want to put together something like this so that we can view some of the output. And you can see here that we also had the logs. So what we just did with printing to standard error for these specific lines is going to give us this output. So we'll get something like this where it'll say, objective, and then the route for the vehicle, and then the distance for the route once we find a solution. So that's great. We'll have that in the logs. But if we want it to show up here in the statistics, we'll have to do a little bit more. So if we scroll down here, we want to not just print to standard error, which is what this function does, but we also want to print to standard out. And so we will use the JSON dumps function here, and for our purposes, we want to maybe put, the value or something like that. Or for right now, maybe just to keep it simple, we will just say that a solution is found. And so I'm going to go ahead and say we have our standard statistics convention. So as long as you meet this in the JSON, you will have that as the output. So statistics, and then I'm going to say that solution and found, and we'll have to make these strings, and then we'll just put this all in a little JSON blob. All right, so that should output to here when we make that run in our sample TSP. So let's go back there. And the one last thing I'll do is I will say we want to print something out even if we don't find a solution. So we're going to copy this one again. And we're going to say not found. Maybe we'll get excited when it's found. Excellent. All right, so I think we should be all set here. So really we just made a few small changes. One, moving the imports up so to keep our code clean. Changed all of these statements that are just printing to print to standard error. And once we have that, we should be good to go. So all these print statements are going to standard error, and that should give us that nice view in the logs. And we can delete this one as well. And yeah, and then we'll print our output, which will print the output statistics. And right now we'll just say solution found. We also need to change our requirements txt file. So in every app that you push, or every model that you push to Nextmv, you need to include an app YAML file. And this app YAML file says, run on a Python runtime and container essentially, and that you can use all the packages that we put in the requirements txt file. We already referenced our main file. That's fine. We don't have any other Python files, but if you did, you could include those here if you parsed out different portions of your model as different Python files. So we're going to go ahead and look at that requirements txt file and do not have OR tools. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that in. And now we have OR tools and Nextmv. Let's go ahead and give that a go. So we're going to push this up to our sample TSP app. So we're going to Nextmv app push, and we'll push it to sample TSP. And while that's going, what we'll notice is that a lot of times when we're building models for production use, we actually want to take an input file instead of creating the input in the actual model itself. And so if you do that on Nextmv, you'll just need to read that data from standard in, and that's just a JSON load. So that's very easy to do, and we could port this out into a load, but for right now, we just want to see if it runs. So this app as is will take nothing as an input. So we'll go back here and refresh, and we can see that our app was pushed. And so that's great. And we'll go ahead and run this. And so we just looked at it. We don't really have any input. So we'll just send it an empty JSON. And we're going to run on Devin. That's just the model we just pushed. And it's our development version. And we'll go ahead and give that a run and hope for the best. Sure enough, and we found a solution. So you can see that that statistics did pop up here. And if we go ahead and look at the logs, we can see all those print statements that we scattered throughout the model. So you can see the objective was 4,384, the route for the vehicle, and also the distance of the route. And so that's all for now. Hope you have fun.